Welcome to week 4. This week we're talking about sound effects, and I'm super excited because I love poems that use sound effects to surprise readers, to delight readers. I think it's so much fun. This is the overview of what you're doing this week. You're going to watch the video, which is what you're doing right now. Read the poems for this week. So there's 4 poems by Todd Boss and actually, yeah, do from the 4 poems by Todd Boss. That'd be great. Pick one of those, and you're going to respond to the sound effects on one of them. I'll put the link to Todd Boss's poems here. It's elsewhere in this module, but I'll put it here also. Then by the end of the day on Friday, you're going to submit your sound effect poem, so your poem using sound effects, and I'll go over what your options are for that. And then by the end of the day on Sunday, you're going to respond to 2 other people's sound effect drafts. So let me go back to the module just so I can pull up. You'll also have access to this explanation, but I just want to talk through it for you briefly. Okay. So these are the kinds of sound effects that we're dealing with. I'm just going to tell you up front, we're not going to deal with end rhyme because end rhyme is really challenging to do. It can make your poem sound like a Hallmark card, right? Like kind of goofy, syrupy, right? It's just not as um it's not as effective and it's not contemporary. That's a really old-fashioned way of doing rhyme. And so we're going to look at some more contemporary ways of using sound effects. So alliteration, you probably remember from elementary school, where the initial sounds of words that are close to each other are the same. So like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pepper says the peas, right? That's an extreme example, but uses a lot of alliteration. Consonants is where the words share consonant sounds. Remember, consonants are anything that's not vowels, A, E, I, O, U, right? And the consonants don't, unlike alliteration, they don't have to be just the beginning of the words. So for N, you could have nothing, any, cannot, span. The beginning, middle, end, anywhere in there, but that's consonants. They have consonants in common. Assonance is very similar to consonants, but it's the vowel sounds that are shared, not consonant sounds. And again, they could appear anywhere in the word. And notice in these examples that I've given here, English is notoriously, English spelling notoriously doesn't match up with sound. So it's not about how they look on the page, it's about how they sound to your ears. So you actually have to say it out loud. So through, chewy, blue stem, shoe shine, and oodles all have the ooh sound, but they're all spelled differently, the ooh part of it, right? So it's not how they're spelled, it's the sound. And at the same time, there are words that can look the same. We call them sight rhymes, but we're not really going to focus on that because we're focusing on ears this week. But they can look as if they should rhyme and they don't when you say them, right? So just be on the lookout for that. True rhymes, again, you're probably familiar with. Usually their exact rhymes, the meaning of the initial sound is different, but the rest is the same. Although again, they could be spelled differently. So neat feet. It's just the n and the f at the beginning that are different. The rest is the same. True rhymes also include self rhyme. So the words are exactly the same word, or they might be just words that sound the same, even though they're spelled differently. So weather, as in whether or not, and weather, as in the weather outside. Weather, weather. We don't say them differently. End rhyme, this is what we're going to avoid, but this is rhyme that appears only at the end of the lines. And it really hits the ear hard. So it's hard to do it well without it overtaking the meaning of the poems. Internal rhyme is where the rhyme is within the lines. It could be within one line or it can be across lines. Some of the rhyme could be at the end, some of it's at the middle, at the beginning. The point is they don't line up at the end. They're not both at the end of the line. We'll see an example of that I think here in a second. So the dog sleep and not a peep is heard. It's all in one line. So sleep and peep rhyme, but they're not at the end of lines. Slant rhyme is a really fun kind of rhyme and one that contemporary poets use a lot because it's a little bit sneakier. It's a little bit less hard hitting than exact rhyme, but really pleasurable to the ear. So it's also called near rhyme or imperfect rhyme, and they're words or syllables that almost rhyme or they share a lot of qualities together. So slant rhyme can be internal or the beginning end of the line. It's not about where it appears, it's about how it sounds. So you can see in the Yeats lines I have below, moon and on don't exactly rhyme, but they both have an n sound in common. And bodies, ladies, have the D's, right, syllable in common, but the first syllables are different. So when have I last looked on the round green eyes and the long wavering bodies of the dark leopards of the moon, all the wild witches, those noble ladies. So notice how it doesn't hit as hard as if it were moon in June, right? But it's a little bit more subtle, which is cool. And one way to create slant rhymes that I think is kind of fun is you change the vowel sound but keep the consonants the same. So read, road, road, ride, raid, rude. Road and road there are exact rhymes, but read road or road ride or road rude, right, aren't. Um, so those are some things about sound effects. Okay. And let's look at, I just wanted to use this quick example. This is a poem that, sorry, I should have looked it up and given the person credit, the person who found this poem in their one sentence poem response. But this was a nice example of something that's playing with kind of slant rhyme and sound effects in a really cool way. So it's called reduction. The most volatile of elements, like love, is with us, inconstant, inconsistent, inconstant, insistent, until in an instant it isn't. So you see how much fun, there's not direct rhyme in this, there's not exact rhyme, but it's really fun. Um, we've got some common sounds in volatile and love, have both L's and B's. And then we have is with us, also has some things in common with inconsistent, inconstant, insistent, instant, and isn't. Those are all very similar, even though they're not rhymes. So that can be a fun thing to do is see how you can make these, put all these words together, right, to make some kind of meaning. And this poem does make sense. So it's saying love, right? It's inconsistent, it's inconstant, right? It can change, but it's insistent, like it's hard to ignore until in an instant it isn't. You can fall out of it. You fall in it, fall out of it, right? So, and it's called a reduction, like he's reducing this, right, to this little formula of all the descriptions of love. It's beautiful. So whoever found this, thank you. Sorry, I didn't remember who it is to give them credit, but I thought that was a great example. Okay, so let's go back to modules here real quick. I'm gonna look at what you're gonna do. So for Tuesday, I will put in there the link to the Todd Boss poems. Todd Boss is a Minnesota poet who is just excellent at this kind of sound effect play. He's amazing. So for Tuesday, you're going to pick one of his poems and you're just going to notice all the things that you find in it, like I'll put them all in there. So consonants, assonance, alliteration, true rhyme, slant rhyme, internal rhyme, external rhyme, all that stuff, end rhyme. And it's a fun little analysis, I think, of that poem. And then for Friday, you're writing your own poem that really uh, dials in on sound, right? Tries to really do something interesting with sound. And I'm going to give you your ideas here of what you can focus on. So a poem of at least 10 lines that focuses on sound effect, all the sound effects we've talked about. We're aiming for internal versus end rhyme. And also what we're learning is cumulative. So I know this is a challenge, but we're challenging ourselves. You have to still think about lines, stanzas, sensory details, figurative comparison. So think about all of that as you're also focusing on sound, right? Because you also know you're going to break it into lines and all that stuff. Okay, so the option number one is number 62, Nonsense of Summer from page 216, Write Yourself Out of a Corner. And they have an example on this page. It's kind of fun. You take a poem that's in a foreign language that you don't know, and then you try to translate it into English based on the sound, not based on the meaning. You don't look up what the meanings are. In fact, you don't want to know what the meanings are because you don't want that to influence your poem. You're just saying, what does this sound like in English? And you're writing it down and then seeing what you get. Um, And I gave you, since they already have the example in the book of the ones you can see what someone did with it, you can't do that one because it's already done for you on those pages. I gave you two other poems here that you can try out. So one's a Paul Verlaine poem from in French, and one's a Giacomo Leopardi poem in Italian. So hopefully you don't know either French or Italian. You could pick one of those if you would like to. The second option is called Bitch is a Word from Write Yourself Out of the Corner, number 61, page 214. And I also gave you Todd Boss also has a poem, When You Say You Suck. So it's on this phrase, you suck, what happens when someone, this is a husband and wife arguing, and he says, what happens when you say you suck, you say these bad things to me. Um, and what you want to do with this one is you're going to focus on some kind of word. It could be in the book, it's, bitch, which could be and you suck are really negative, right, things to say to people. They also have a really beautiful example in the book about black is a word I hear a lot. It's a really beautiful meditation on black. So you could, even though it's not a poem because it's not in lines, I would look at that. So it is a really nice example. It could have been put in lines. It just isn't. So you could use a derogatory term that you want to look at. And I think in these poems, it doesn't just dwell on that though. You'll see they take you somewhere interesting with it. It could also be a positive word. I hear the word beautiful a lot. And do you think it's being overused? What's it being used to describe? What do you think beautiful is, right? So you're sort of meditating on a word. You pick the word and you're meditating on it. And you're using some sound effects in there. If you look in Todd Boss's poem particularly, you really see some great use of sound effects. And then option 3 is I assigned everyone a sound in a list down here. I'll show you. And you're going to take that sound. So I'm assigning it to you because what we were reading about in the Write Yourself Out of a Corner about constraints. I'm giving you the sound, and that's your constraint. You're going to use as many of that sound as possible. Remember, though, it's not just about spelling, it's about how it sounds. You have to think about the sound. So first, if you want to do this one, I would take your sound, make a list of words with that sound. Remember, it can appear anywhere in the word, not just at the beginning, middle, end, two places in the word, whatever. And then you're going to, from that big list of words that you make, use as many as possible in your poem. And they can appear in all different ways, all different places. And I gave you some examples of the sound. So like for Donovan, B as in boy at the beginning, tub at the end, bubble at the beginning and the end, right? The only persons I think I need to give a caution on is Taylor. I gave you the hard G as in greeting, tag, goggles, but it's not the soft G as in gentleman. J. It's not the J sound, it's the G sound. So just keep that in mind when you're doing yours. And then, so you're writing your poem of at least 10 lines. And then by Sunday, you're replying to two other people's drafts. And I have some specific questions about sound effects. I want you to really focus in on the sound effects this week and help each other with the sound effects. Okay, well, thanks so much, everybody. I hope you have a lot of fun with sounds this week. I look forward to seeing what you create as always, and talk to you next week.